Hello, gamer. Oh, why am I off center? Hello, gamers. How's it going? Hope you're having a lovely Sunday, assuming that it's a Sunday for you. I might be a Monday, who knows? Anyway, hello. We today are going to be taking a break from actually playing because I played a little bit off stream. I actually played in the one of the new Moto challenges, the one that was Friday evening, and I got a top eight. It was actually a pretty cool tournament. Played against a lot of different decks, um, and I just wanted to take a break from playing a league and just review all the matches that I played, talk a bit about the plays that I made, talk a bit about the mistakes that I made, and obviously, if anybody has any questions as we get through these matches, please bring them up. I'm happy to talk about them. This will probably have more opportunity for a Q&A than I usually do while I'm like focusing on playing. Hey Mike, how's it going? Um, why this list? Okay, there's a couple things I want to say about that. I'm not going to talk too much about the specifics of the cards in this list because it's basically the same white, black, splashing green list I've been playing for like 5 months at this point. Um, if you have not heard me say this already, if you are looking to port this list into paper, either subscribe to my Patreon for the list and the sideboard guide, or just cut the second sash for the first formal wear. All right, leave me alone. Card choices otherwise are pretty standard things that I've already talked about. The reason that I went with the black list specifically over there's the saga list that I've been trying on stream a bit lately. There were kind of two main reasons. The first is Truth Cult 69. Thank you so much for the follow. Welcome. I'm not super comfy with the saga lists yet. I think they're good. I just don't personally feel super comfortable with them yet. Oh yeah, nice. Yeah, of course. Um, and the other thing is that I had been noticing that the challenges lately, especially the smaller ones, had been pretty high on the kind of nonsense that I feel like the saga list is really weak to, with the lack of the discard spells. Um, did that actually happen? Yes and no. We'll get to it. I think I made the right choice overall, though. So yeah, I think that's about all that I will say about the list, and we'll just head over to the replay. Get my first match already up. Um, the I posted all the matchups that I played on Twitter, but I won't spoil them in the video. We'll just watch them as we go. I'll probably have to manually control this a bit because Moto replays are kind of a nightmare to use. Hey, I'm not hating on the Dark Ritual gamers. I'm just acknowledging your existence. That's all. Um, yeah, so I'm on the play, right? Yeah, I'm on the play. This game is a very serviceable hand. Not really anything special to say about it. The Savannah is annoying, but like whatever, you know. I play a fetch land. My opponent plays, I believe, a blue fetch land. Oh no, they just play an Underground Sea. So obviously, I'm kind of assuming that this is probably going to be Rescaminator. That's just the most likely thing off of an Underground Sea lately, especially Underground Sea Pass. Um, feels pretty likely to be either End Step Entomb or End Step Cycle Troll Doom. I choose not to fetch here for a Surveil lands just because I don't really know what I'm after yet. I already have two removal spells in my hand also, so I'm not really digging for removal either. So anyway, I draw another land, I fetch twice. Then I play a Thalia. Now in response to this Thalia, my opponent unfortunately does in fact have an End Step Entomb. Now, where I think they honestly go a bit wrong is this is, both from my perspective and Katie has been playing a lot of Risk Gamer and was watching most of these matches. Like both of our immediate reactions was kind of being surprised that they went for Archon first. I think Archon is definitely the best reanimation target against DNT, but I feel like you're supposed to do it after sort of the dust has settled. I think you are, even against a Caracas deck like we are, I think you're supposed to go for Atraxa first, because even if I bounce it, they still drew like 4 cards, and I think it's the Atraxa sets up for an Archon that I'm not going to have an answer for, which is just a guaranteed win. So, but anyway, not only do they have the Entomb, they also have the Daze for the Thalia, which is pretty annoying. So they have the Reanimate. Archon comes into play. I think I discard the Skyclave here. Yeah, I discard the Skyclave. It's not a good card against Scam in general. Yeah, exactly. Especially like you haven't given me a reason to swords literally anything. So make me use my removal and then play the card that wins so hard if I don't have removal. Yeah. This is Dale. We are watching the I played in the Friday challenge. I top 8'd, and we're just watching the replays from that. So anyway, I untap. I think I draw a Mother of Runes. Yeah. I start off with the swords on the Archon, in case my opponent has a Force of Will, which they do. They pitch a Ponder to it. Feeling all right about that. And then here, there's kind of a decision here about what card we are pitching to the Solitude. There's no question that we are casting the Solitude. But I think there is a legitimate argument over whether you pitch the Wisp or the Mother of Runes. The main benefit of keeping the Mother Runes is not so much that Mom is good, but that you get the value out of the card and don't have to have the Wisp just like kind of hanging out in our hand to get griefed later, basically. That said, I'm not really thrilled with the idea of just having a Mom and nothing else, especially when like they're going to untap and have 2 mana and potentially be able to Bowmaster the Mom and negate it that way. So I felt like it wasn't really valuable to cast a Mom here, so I just keep the Wisp. Opponent brainstorms. They wasteland my Savannah, and I'm sad about it. And I think, yeah, so here I draw another land, and I play it, of course. And I want to pause here for a moment, because I kind of hemmed and hawed about whether or not I'm supposed to cast this Wisp here, just to get a clock into play. And I think this is actually kind of like the situation changes, which is why I think it's kind of important to talk about it right now. Basically, the reason that I decided not to cast the Flicker Wisp here is mostly that I know it's kind of hard to see probably on the stream. I'm not sure how big it is. But their graveyard doesn't have any creatures in it. They don't have anything to reanimate. Which means that like if they brainstormed, their brainstorm locked because they just played a wasteland after that. They haven't actually cantripped other than that. It's totally possible their hand is just a bunch of reanimation spells and they don't have anything to do with them, which might lead to a situation where like they're just trying to get this game over with and they reanimate like my Solitude or something like that. If that happens, I really want to have my Wisp in hands to steal what they reanimate. And that is the reason that I don't cast this Wisp here, although I do think about it for a bit. And I don't put my Yorion in my hand either, for reasons I've mentioned before when playing against Grief. I think you're just supposed to have Yorion in your hands for as short a time as possible, because you really need it a lot of times to recoup against the games where like stuff like this happens, and letting it get griefed is just way too risky. And like I said, the reason that I talk about the reason for not casting Wisp here is they don't have any creatures, so we want to Wisp something that they reanimate. Now that this troll is in the graveyard, that's totally different. This Wisp is supposed to just get into play. Let's see. Also, argument for not playing this Caracas into a Wastelands, but I think you want the mana more because you win from the game going long and having mana. Yes, yeah, fully agree. I think I am probably. I'm not happy if they Wasteland my Caracas, but I am happy if they do that over doing basically anything else, which I think is kind of what you're getting at. So my opponent gets an Underground Sea and plays it and passes. Um, I almost don't cast the Wisp, but then I remember why we got to this point, and I do eventually cast the Wisp. They cycle a second troll, so there's no shot that anything in our graveyard is getting reanimated. And here they have an animate dead on a troll, and we are on the clock. We are under pressure and need to figure out how to get out of it. And an Aether Vial is not really the card that we need to get out of this. But we're not blocking, so we sure are attacking. I believe that this turn, this turn I put Yorion into my hand because we're kind of at the point where what shot do we have other than maybe racing? Like, we can't really beat them griefing us anyway, so. And now they have 2 trolls in hand, and we have to draw exactly a removal spell to even have one more turn. And unfortunately, we fail that test. So, game 1 does not go our way, unfortunately. Oh no, am I going to set this up every time? Oh goodness. Give me a second. I thought I was going to remember where my window was. Oh. Whoop, boop. There we go. All right, so we start this game on the play. This is our first 7. Not thrilled about it, obviously. Yeah, I just don't think that this is really keepable, unfortunately. It's just any one piece of interaction, this hand just doesn't do anything. Yeah, it was kind of annoying to lose to that Entomb, unfortunately. Like, I think there was like a chance we were in that game because they went for Archon and not Atraxa, which always makes it annoying when we don't actually get to capitalize on that gap that our opponent gave us. So yeah, so we mold that. Punishing Waterfalls. Hey, thank you so much for the follow. How's it going? Congrats on the win in this very challenge that we're looking at. Spoilers for later, I guess, for anybody who hasn't seen it. So this is our 6. It's not a good 6. It has a lot of problems. But I think that we basically have to keep it over going to 5 because it has a lot going for it, even if there are some pretty exploitable problems with it. So I decided to keep, and I just put Bowmasters on the bottom because it's the one card that I can't cast. There's like, it's like a little bit tempting to bottom a Caracas because we have 2 of them, but like, I would rather not just straight up lose to one Wasteland. So I keep both Caracases, especially because like the Bowmaster isn't usable unless we draw Black Source anyway. So opponent goes turn 1 Undercity Sewers, and then I believe to even further incentive or further make us look smart for bottoming the Bowmasters, we just draw 1 right away anyway. I believe here, yeah, I cast Stoneforge. I don't really think there's much of an argument for doing anything else. I don't like Wastelanding, especially when we have like no lands. When they have a slower start like this, that's like Undercity Sewers keeping a card on top. I think that's a really great spot to just get Sash and put the pressure on them to get something into play right away, especially because we have a Swords to answer whatever they put into play right away. My opponent then dismembers me, which is not really. I think I find it funny a lot of times when, like, I think a Stoneforge in play ends up being a removal magnet in a lot of situations where it really doesn't have to be. I like it feels like anytime I get a Stoneforge and search for a card that's not Kaldra, my opponent just like plays like I have Kaldra in my hands. And I think that they shouldn't do that all the time, and yet they really love to. So I don't know. Anyway, I think the only argument would be if they have a counter spell that they want to use on the Sash. That's like the only other argument. Um, as we'll find out soon, they don't have one. So like I don't know. I just don't really get it. So they just they play a fetch land and pass. I have an opportunity here to flash in the Bowmasters, but I really just want to hit my mana. But I find basically the one card other than mana that I would keep, and it's Recruiter of the Guard. I guess maybe not one, but like one of the very few. And since they... Okay, yeah. And then I just play this Ash and hold up Caracas. And then I believe, yeah, here, my opponent then, they fetch, and then they cycle. I don't totally get that, but whatever. And then while my opponent only has one mana available and an important card in the graveyard, I go ahead and exile the Troll of Khazad-dûm. Unfortunately, they have another right away, but, you know, we're doing what we can. So my opponent has two Underground Seas in their hand right now. Yeah, they have an Animate Dead, unfortunately. I go ahead and swords it before they have the chance to draw into any counter spells. Again, I think if they had a counter spell, they would have used it there. They also would have used it on the Sash. Only bringing that up again to bring up, I don't understand why that Dismember was used on my Stoneforge, because I think they would be in a better spot if they did just used it on this Sash instead. So, anyway. An important mistake I make here is I used the Shadowy Backstreet to swords the Troll instead of using the Caracas so that I could hold up Bowmasters. I wasn't thinking anything differently here. I just like plainly tapped the wrong lands for the job. Not much more to say about it. My opponent casts a Brainstorm. I would be pretty happy to have cast a Bowmasters into that Brainstorm. And then my opponent has a Murktide Regent. Graveyard's empty, so that could be worse. And I start eating my yard. Specifically ate the Stoneforge because we have the Canoptex Scarab Swarm in hand, so we want to maximize the insects that we're going to be getting from that later. I think a bit about whether I need to kill this Murktide right away. We end up landing on we can afford to take like a turn off, specifically because if we can find one more land to at least like get the Recruiter into play, that makes our prospects for the upcoming turns look a lot better. And it's only a 5/5, so like the clock is we definitely have room here at the very least. So I think there's certainly an argument for casting it before they have a chance to draw into counter magic, but as we will see in the next moment, doesn't really matter. They have a grief. They're not only are they forcing the action now, they didn't draw a counter spell anyway. The Solitude resolves. They can go ahead and grief us. I think the most surprising thing here is they take the Scarab Swarm. With their graveyard empty, us on both not a lot and very fragile mana, the Scarab Swarm just doesn't seem like a really important card. So I was personally surprised that they decided to take that over just one of the Bowmasters. But, I don't know. Go ahead and eat my creatures so they have fewer reanimation targets again. We draw a Stinky Kaldra that can't do anything. And then I decided to cast the Bowmasters here just to push damage. Because I think in this spot, my resources aren't that great. Um, there's a chance that I win the top deck war in the long run, but it's just really hard to tell, especially because my opponent has 5 cards in their hand and I only have 1, and I know that it's worthless. Um, so yeah, I'm just trying to push. Choosing not to attack with my Bowmasters because I don't want to expose them to. I don't want my Bowmasters to be able to be traded for in combat and unlock cantrips. I then eat 1 land with my Sash, go to damage. My opponent unfortunately has a Petty Theft on the Sash. And this is where I think these next couple turns, I think I'm not really happy with the lines that I took, so I want to talk about it a little bit. So my opponent bounces it. I now go to my post-combat main phase, and I have 3 mana available. If I remember right, I just cast the Sash. Or no, I just passed the turn here. I don't think that I can really afford to pass the turn for the aforementioned reasons. I think I need to use all of my mana and like capitalize on the advantage that I have right now. And either put the Sash into play and let it die to a Bowmasters, or put Yorion in my hand, especially because like this Grief is going to be hard to block now that I don't have this Sash around. I don't have a way to block the Brazen Borrower at all right now, and there's a very high chance I'm going to need my Yorion to blink these Bowmasters to start like dealing with their board and making a bigger board presence. And we will see soon how I really needed to do that, but I won't get too far ahead of myself. I just take this 3. Still ahead on clock, at least right now. And this land also is a very nice draw. I believe if I remember right, I go ahead and I cast the Sash, and then I go to combat and I just attack with the army again. I think this might be a spot where I just have to recognize that if they had a Bowmaster, they already would have cast it, and I just need to get damage in. And I think I am definitely right now just playing too scared, just straight up. So here my opponent casts a Brazen Borrower, and now I'm in the bad spot where like they have a 2-turn clock, and I really can't afford to take damage because I have not taken either of the 2 opportunities I had to put Yorion into my hands, which means that I am just going to take 3 a turn from this Brazen Borrower unless the top of my deck is very kind to me. That unfortunately puts me in this scenario where I either have to let my opponent cast cantrips out of their hands, or I have to put down, or I have to basically get rid of my 1 piece of graveyard interaction in this Lion Sash, because I have to trade with this Grief here. I don't really think that there's another option. I think about it for a bit. I decide to let them unlock their cantrips. I'm really not confident about that, like, at all. I would much rather be in a situation where I just have Yorion in my hands. I can try to take the 6 and make them have a counterspell that they haven't had at all this game on the Yorion next turn. Unfortunately, my opponent has a reanimate. I just get to eat my Bowmasters. That's not a problem. Oh yeah, okay. This is a slightly interesting spot that I think kind of shows how I continue making the same mistake this upcoming turn as well. Pausing on these replays is hard. So my opponent cracks this fetch land, and I note that this is, if I let this fetch land resolve and they just get a land, that's exactly enough mana to cast a Murktide. And it would be a 5/5 Murktide, which would make me basically dead. For that reason, I make what I believe is just an objectively correct play, which is I use my Sash to eat the Grief. It gets a reanimation target out of their yard, and it also keeps them off of casting a Murktide. I think that's all fine and good. My opponent casts a Brainstorm and then passes. Cool. We go to my next turn. I have another Crocus. Now, where I think I make a mistake is... Okay, so my opponent finally has a Bowmasters. If I remember right, I think they just, like, chump. Yeah, they chump here or something. That's totally fine. Where I think I, again, just, like, go down this line where I never let myself capitalize on Yorion. I convinced myself that they cracked that fetch because they were intending to play Murktide, and assumed that was still the case, and now use like all of my mana to just eat the spells out of their graveyard. For all that I think that's like somewhat understandable, the problem is I'm still just losing to the board that they have. It doesn't matter if they cast a Murktide, I'm still just dying. So I really think I just like misassessed what was important for like multiple turns here, because now they have a Bowmasters, and now I'm down to 2 after this combat step, and I need a removal spell for this Brazen Borrower, or I'm dead. And I, again, don't draw it. And if I had a Yorion at any point during this game, just to even block the Brazen Borrower, I take like 9 less damage. Like, the game is just so different if I give myself the opportunity to block. So anyway, yeah, using Yorion against Grief decks. Oh yeah, quick look into wife at this point. Yep, she has. I'll let you narrate for a second. Yeah, I do find that Grief is really hard to play against with Yorion. I think I really overcorrected in this game. I should have just like made them have a Grief and utilized this Yorion. I had so much mana to eventually use it, and I just never did, and it was very unfortunate. So rough start. We're down 0-2, or we're down 0-2 in this match to be 0-1 in the tournament. But yeah, so we're thinking, all right, well, maybe this will be over soon. Little do we know. Go into game 2. Oh. So I have a serviceable hand. It's got a Thoughtseize. It's got a removal spell. My opponent's mulling to 5, and I am on the play also. So go ahead, fetch a Scrublands, and I believe this goes super fast. So let me see if I can catch it. Here we go. This graphic is messed up. This is a One Ring. My opponent has a hand that goes 4 mana sources and casts a turn 1 the One Ring. So I'm thinking, all right, cool. I don't remember if I looked it up. I'm pretty sure this is just like the Cavern of Souls kind of tells you that this is the One Ring variant of Turbo Muxus. So I very happily get the One Ring out of their hands. Looking at my hand that has a removal spell, a bunch of other things, and I'm feeling pretty good. They can cast most of the cards that they draw, but they have to draw gas for like the rest of the game. And as soon as I waste their Cavern and they pass, I'm feeling golden, especially with this second Solitude, so I can get the Sash into play to start attacking them. I think they pass again. Yep. Batterskull, not really loving it, but it's okay. We start getting in the red zone. opponent casts Chrome Mox, imprinting one of the spirit guides, and then they cast a Goblin Matron. And this is where things start looking really scary, because they Matron for Muxus. I know that they have another spirit guide in their hands, and so they just need, here we go. During the replay, I was like, wait a second. It might be helpful to actually show the revealed cards. So my opponent has Muxus and one spirit guide in their hands. Thankfully, top deck a Wasteland because I'm really skilled at the video game. And I just start dealing a bunch more damage. Hit him for 7. My opponent plays a Name Sticker Goblin off of another Soul Land, which forces me to use my Solitude, and I'm not mad, but not thrilled either. I'm keeping my Vial at 3 here, just because I think it's important to be able to capitalize on specifically a Recruiter draw. I just draw lands, whatever. I threaten lethal. They have to attack. They have to block with the Matron. Works for me. I grab my Yorion, and then my opponent draws a Cavern of Souls so that they are able to cast this Muxus. And I have never gone so quickly from like flabbergasted that my opponent's main deck Trashmaster is about to like destroy my day into the feelings I'm going to have afterwards. You'll see. So my opponent hits Matron and Trashmaster. Very mid Muxus hits, all things considered. And what surprised me next is that they kill my Vial. I think that part makes some sense. What makes less sense to me is that they then kill my Sash with the Trashmaster, just leaving a 4/4 Muxus that with a Name Sticker and nothing else in their hand. So I draw a land, and I get to cast this Batterskull that just looks at the Muxus, not even a little bit afraid. And then the board state just never changes. I attack. They don't block, because if they block, there's no way they ever win. And then they don't draw a land again, so I cast a Solitude, target nothing. On their turn, I would bounce Muxus with Karakas and then win. So, yeah, one of the easier Muxus wins I've honestly ever had. That would not have been remotely possible if not for Thoughtseize. So we get into the next game. And this hand is like quite good. It's probably like one of the best non-discard spell hands I've ever had against a Muxus. This hand is just great all around. The only thing it's really missing is like a Solitude for a turn 1 Name Sticker, but my opponent notably mulled to 6, not 5 this time, but they just go Shatterskull Pass, and I'm totally fine with that. I play Karakas. I think they play a Rabble Master. I think a bit about whether I'm supposed to Swords this Rabble Master. I decide to do it mostly just for the mana efficiency. I don't really want to be in a position where like I have to hold this Swords up for forever, and like this Rabble Master is going to do a lot of damage to me, so I decided to take it out. Draw another 2-drop, which is making me a little bit worried. Here, I just cast the Bowmasters. It's never going to do anything, but its body's in play. That's good enough for me. I draw another land, and again, mostly for the mana efficiency, I decided to go for Recruiter here, grab a Solitude, just have another piece of insurance against the Name Sticker Goblin. I believe my opponent Matrons here, if I remember right. Yeah, they Matron. I believe they Matron for Muxus. Yeah, they Matron for Muxus. I draw lands, which is great. Again, my mana is just so tied up. The more mana I have, the better. And this feels like a great spot for me to Stoneforge. I just Stoneforge for Batterskull. That's a good way to put some pressure on. Potentially get like a, they have Muxus in their hand. There's a decent chance that they're going to have a name sticker to go along with it, based on like the fact that they don't have a ton of mana, or they don't have enough mana as it stands right now. That makes me think like one of the best things I can potentially do is just put a lot of pressure on like the Pyrokinesis. That's like probably the best card that they could have in this spot. So, this is, I think, one of the best plays I made all night. Because my opponent does have a name sticker goblin. And like I was just saying, I'm trying to put pressure on the Pyrokinesis. And if I let this name sticker resolve and cast a Containment Priest into a Pyrokinesis, to thinking I'm going to just answer the Muxus that way, no shot. No shot I win this game. I'm just completely dead. So, I just decide to Solitude the name sticker, pitching this Thalia that I don't really need, because if they don't have Pyrokinesis to kill my Stoneforge, I am super winning. I don't need these cards. So I kill the name sticker. They make no mana. Lo and behold, Pyrokinesis in their hands. They kill my Stoneforge, my Recruiter, and my Bowmasters. And the last card in their hand is a Muxus they can't cast. And as we see, I flash in Containment Priest, put a Jite on it, and my opponent is not interested in playing the game anymore. So yeah. Felt really, really good about that one. Just don't leave yourself dead to Pyrokinesis if you don't have to. So, we're covering 1-1. We'll see where it goes from here. There we go. Let's look at this opener, actually, before I go too far. Yeah. Wife still has to be at work at 8:30 tomorrow, thinking, well, okay, I mean, we still only need one more loss to be out of it, right? Anyway, this hand is quite awkward. The Cauldra isn't a card I want to have in the opener. I decide that it's on the fringe of keepable because we can easily cast any card that we draw, and at least we're on the play. So we get to... If this hand was on the draw, I don't think you can keep it, but on the play, I'm okay with it, especially because we can Surveil on the first turn and make sure that we don't hit another land drop. And I do hit a Wasteland. There's that's like one of the possible lands that I would keep, but I assume looking at turn one, not even Basic Island and not even fetch for Basic Island, probably not going to need it. My opponent just cast an end step Brainstorm, and then they force pitching a Fairy Mastermind. Starts throwing me back to like there was like the Jeskai decks, like the Jeskai control decks that were playing Fairy Mastermind alongside like Staff of the Storyteller, or like that era of like Jeskai decks before Bowmasters got printed, basically. Because I don't know if you've ever looked at Fairy Mastermind. It's really bad against Orcish Bowmasters. So now my opponent just casts a Brainstorm. They're Brainstorm locked and they play basic planes. So I don't really know what's going on. I draw Thoughtseize. I don't worry about playing it yet because I just want to be mana efficient. So I cast a Recruiter of the Guard. They Brainstorm again, and then force again, pitching Fairy Mastermind again. And I'm just learning nothing about what this deck is and just keep getting more confused. And then my opponent plays Ponder. And before I go on to the next card that gets cast, XJ Cloud, you're here just in time. Because at Eternal Weekend this past year, You had played against an interesting card, one that I don't. I think you said that you had never seen before, and you asked the chat if. Yeah, I'll let you deal with that. Asked if anybody could guess the one and a blue enchantment that your opponent played against you. And my wife, the genius that she is, sniped it. It was, in fact, Mana Maze. Now, I'm going to save y'all the trouble and put Mana Maze into the chat right now. The way I just jokingly described it to someone was imagine Counterbalance, but worse. And then it's kind of even worse than that. Pre-modern All-Star, you got to be joking. That can't be real. Oh, printed in 2000. Okay, printed in 2000. There were 5. Okay, got it. Okay. It is a card that's played in pre-modern. Okay, that makes more sense. So anyway, I've never seen this card, but I recall that this was played in an Esper Painter deck. But that's all that I know. So I thought Seize My Opponent, and that went really fast. But the 2 cards in their hand were Teferi and Bowmasters. So I just took the Teferi because like they can cast the Teferi and it like does something, and the Bowmaster is pointless, and they also don't have black mana. They wasteland my black source. It's annoying, but then I draw a fetch land anyway, so whatever. And then there's the Grindstone. I'm officially playing against Esper, Painter, Mana Maze. It very well might be the same person as your Eternal Weekend opponent, but who knows? I feel like it must be. So I got removal. I'm not going to be losing to Painter anytime soon, really. And I draw Bowmasters, so I'm going to be able to get a threat into play. My opponent then grindstones me. They mill 2 random cards. It doesn't matter. And then we have a Painter Servant in play. Now, I decide to cast the Bowmasters because I don't actually understand how Mana Maze works. I don't really have to do it in response to this Painter Servant, but my thought was like, oh, it must be the only way that these cards could be worth playing together is if once that Painter Servant is in play, I can't cast spells anymore, right? Like that would be kind of messed up and like a reason to play this card in your deck, right? Right? But spoilers, that's not how it works because Painter Servant was still a colorless spell. It doesn't actually do anything for Mana Maze. So I can still just swords I still just swords the Painter Servant and move on. And then yeah, I just cast a Yorion here to put pressure on them, basically. It's like kinda like Canonist, but not really because it changes throughout the turn. Yeah, so I guess it's kind of one spell. Bravo, Brendan. Thank you so much for the follow. Welcome. It's basically you. It doesn't. It knows that you played. Does it know you played a spell before the enchantment is cast? I think the answer is yes. Like, I think if you cast a Mana Maze, then nobody can cast a blue spell for the rest of the turn. I think. I guess I don't know for sure, but I think that's how it works. Anyway, so I put a Yorion in. We're just trying to pressure them. They still only have 3 mana, so like they can't kill me. Yeah, here's a funny one that I didn't quite grok at the time. I was like, why in the world did they swords my Yorion after I have Karakas to untap it? I'm just gonna Karakas it and then play it again. And unfortunately, that is something Mana Maze prevents me from doing because they cast a white spell, so I can't cast my Yorion. So I just tap 5 lands, untap them, and pass the turn. Um, Now, I could have equipped Jite here. That probably would have been better. But I don't think that it's honestly that bad to just hold up the Solitude instead anyway. Um, Now here I cast Stoneforge. Um, I'm going to point out this was a formal wear moment. Formal wear getting a recruiter or a bowmasters would have been way better than doing anything else. Um, Unfortunately, I'm just not paying attention, and I don't equip a second time. This time I absolutely should have equipped because I'm not holding up mana for anything. So good job, me. They grindstone me again for 2 more random cards. Yeah, recruiter, and Arid Mesa, and then they swords my Stoneforge Mystic. Yeah, I couldn't have cast the formal wear that turn, but formal wear is much better than Batterskull. Casting it like this turn is what I mean. So I attack for 3, and then I think I cast Yorion again. Oh, Mana Maze kept me from equipping GT. Got it. Yes, I agree. Perfect. Got it. So then my opponent, yeah. So my opponent never did anything. They just float blue and a white, and then lose. Yeah, I mean that card stun locked me. I clearly misplayed against it. I'm just not that good. So here we go. Go to the second game. I haven't really been talking about my sideboarding. I guess the flex slot link is several spots above me. Um, the sideboard guide for this list is available. You're getting little snippets of it here and there. Um, but yeah, I board in therapies and I think like a Lauren and that's it. And I'm like, I can't imagine anything else is gonna matter. Um, Am I adding Mana Maze Painter for the May update? Maybe just to be funny. I might do that, but there's so I I would really like to, but I have so many matchups there that it's actually really annoying to print out already, and I already have basically all serious matchups there. So I don't know. Maybe I'll do like an addendum for like for Manaless Dredge, 4 Horsemen, and Mana Maze Painter. Apparently, stuff like that. Anyway, I blind cast this therapy because I don't have a lot else going on. I figured that if I can't imagine anything I care about other than Painter Servant. If they, I was surprised to find that, as we're gonna see, uh, they have a grindstone but didn't cast it on their first turn. I kind of, I just like when I was casting this, I assumed that if there was a grindstone in their opener, they would have cast it, and then they didn't, and I'm not really sure why, but oh well. I miss on the Painter Servant, um, but they have Brainstorm again, that Fairy Mastermind, and a Swords to Plowshares. Yeah, you didn't see the Fairy Masterminds earlier. They pitched 2 of them to Force of Wills. They forced a Bowmaster and then a Recruiter. Um, so they brainstorm, but they're locked, so they have at least 5 of these cards. And now I get to play Athalia. The nice thing about Thalia is that I think it's going to make them use this Swords to Plowshares that I don't care about at all. Yep. Would have said Grindstone because Swords handles Painter. Not sure. Not sure is right considering the other argument we made. Yeah, I think that is a very fair argument that like we already have removal for Painter. Um, I think that's probably the most salient argument to push me towards just naming Grindstone instead. Um, yeah, I'm not sure. Anyway, they cast the Grindstone. Um, they have one of Fairy Mastermind or Underground Sea. I'm assuming at this point that they have the Mastermind, but I don't know for sure. Here, I decided to just try to Lauren the Grindstone just to get it out of there. They have Force and they pitch Force. Okay, they got it. And then they flash in the Fairy Masterminds. And basically wait until they play one more land. They play a Wasteland at this point. I basically know for sure that the last card, I know that this Underground Sea isn't in their hand. Florida Legacy Club, thank you so much for the raid. How's it going? Hope you had a good stream. Yes, they could have pitched Fairy Masterminds. Yeah, so first of all, they don't attack with it. That's wrong. And then they just let me untap. And then activate Fairy Masterminds. So I just get to cast my Bowmasters and blow them up. Almost like this is why Fairy Mastermind hasn't been playable for like 2 months after it was printed. And then they ponder into it. And then we get to hit them again. They Caracas us, or they waste our Caracas, they kill our Bowmasters, blah, 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 blah. Not a whole lot of that matters is happening here. Legacy League with 4-color beans, 2-3. Vintage League with Luris PO, 2-3. Oof. Glad you had fun, though. So I have a 3-3. They have 2 1-1s. Winning the race. Put Yorn in my hands. And the villain is back. The villain of this match, Mana Maze, has returned. We can no longer cast blue spells for this turn. We draw Thoughtseize. That's unfortunately dead, but I think I can live, considering that it's only dead because my opponent has no cards in hand. I am theoretically at risk of dying to a Painter off the top, but like that's not going to happen because we have a Solitude, so we don't have to worry about that. Yep, I draw another land, which means that I do in fact get the Thoughtseize and take their Force of Will that they drew, which makes sense why they didn't play anything. And then probably the funniest thing that happened all night happens. I play this Wisp because it sets me up to have lethal even through a removal spell. My opponent then does the funniest possible thing they could. They cast a Brainstorm. They finish resolving the Brainstorm. They float a blue mana, untap it because they can't cast a blue spell under their own Mana Maze, and then they concede. By the way, this whole match took like 12 minutes. It went so fast and it was so easy. So anyway, so we're 2-1. Not sure if I'm gonna be scrubbing out this one anymore, but we'll see. We're still basically at like one more loss and I'm out because like my round 1 opponent is already at 1-2, so my breakers are in the toilet. Got a pretty okay hand against most anything. My opponent plays a turn 1 Scalding Tarn, which is making me think Delver, but obviously could be many other things. Notably, turn 1 Tarn Pass is not very Delver-like. But, and as we'll see, that's because it's not Delver. It's Risk Aminator again. So they entomb again. This same opponent makes the exact same mistake. They just go for Archon turn 1 into not playing a Caracas. And I think again this gives me the opportunity to actually power through this because I just use a removal spell on the Archon, and things could go totally fine from here. Yep, it is still wrong. So I throw a Bowmasters down because I'm not using it. If I'm gonna win, this Vial is definitely gonna be what gets me there. I don't cast anything here because I don't want anything to get dazed or Bowmastered. My Sash is just too important, and I can't use it this turn to stop this reanimate anyway. So whatever. So now I'm trying to dig for a removal spell. Use my Surveil lands. Mother of Runes is absolutely not what I'm looking for. Take Vial up to 2. Draw, unfortunately, another land. We get hit by a troll. My opponent then hard casts a Grief. I am pretty okay with a hard cast Grief now because this is one of those fun times where we just get to empty our hand, so Grief hits nothing anyway. Yeah, no, and tell the other scam players because you want them to be worse versus DNT. Yeah, it's true. Get Archon first every time. Archon should always be the first creature you put into play. So yeah, we eat a creature of some sort. I think I don't remember what. Oh, we eat our own Solitude just to keep their grimy mitts off of our creatures. I think this is probably another scenario where I was supposed to probably just put Yoran into my hands. I have a Vial ticking up, which is at least like an incentive to wait. But once they've already hard cast the first Grief, I think I am supposed to just put the Yoran in my hand so that I can potentially cast it next turn if I need to. Because this is just a lot of mana that's not going to end up getting used, really. I will use it at least to get my Sash bigger, but like, I don't know. Notably, I do get to get the Sash to the point where it doesn't die to this Grief. I think that was like the main reason that I went for this. But and then they cast a Voidwalker. Voidwalker is really bad because we can't block that at all. So we're basically at a point where we have to draw like exactly Solitude. Or no, sorry, we need to draw exactly Flicker Wisp, or I guess Recruiter. And Jite is like annoyingly close to being enough, but it just isn't because can't block any of their creatures, so we just die. So we're down again against Scam again, though notably the first game is absolutely the hardest, as it usually is with Reanimator strategies. But we board into a lot of Graveyard Hate, which makes this quite a bit easier. This hand is a banger, just straight up great. I get to play a Leyline, and then I get to Thoughtseize my opponent, and we see a really interesting hand, actually. I think I could see an argument, honestly, for any of Voidwalker, Force of Will, or Ponder. I decided to go for the Voidwalker mostly because the longer it takes for them to get a threat into play, the more comfy I feel about the game, basically. So I just take the Voidwalker because I just don't want to be in a situation where like I have to think about pitching this Solitude on a 2 mana card. That just doesn't feel good at all. And then my opponent plays their powder keg that I am not concerned about at all. um, I go ahead and cast a Recruiter of the Guard. My opponent doesn't force it, which makes me think that either their other blue card is really important or non-existent. And then this powder keg ticks up, and they cycle that troll. Yeah, for the record, I'm trying to, in the replay, I'm doing my best to keep the revealed cards up to date. And my opponent plays another powder keg, which I am even happier about because I really am not concerned with a powder keg that cannot kill my leyline. I'm trying to remember why I surveilled before casting this Stoneforge. I think there was a reason, but I don't remember what it was. So my opponent casts a Grief, kind of annoying, but I have two very good 5-drops in my hand, and I think they take the wrong one, honestly. I think that in their shoes, they should probably take the Batterskull, because it's kind of looking like a problem, especially with this Yorion I'm about to put in my hands. Yes, they went turn 3 cast a keg, turn 4 or turn 2 cast a keg, turn 3 cast a keg, and now they do the even more confusing thing of cracking them both to kill my Recruiter and then kill my Stoneforge. And now I just get to ride this Batterskull to victory. Not much. There's a lot of time left in this match, but I don't really remember anything else important happening. I think they just hold up a hardcast Forcible that never gets anywhere because I already have a 4/4 lifelink Vigilance in play. Yeah, I think I use this Wastelands I kill the Underground Sewers because it just makes it harder for them to cast a... Like, they could hardcast a Troll here, theoretically. I cast this Bowmaster here because it forces... Basically requires them to use the Forcible that's in their hands. Totally fine by me. I cast this Grafdigger's Cage a turn or two ago to make sure that they couldn't reanimate anything in my yard. And I attack with this Batterskull again, and then they're on 2 cards, and if it's force blue card to get this Yorion, then good for them. And it's not, so yeah, this game ends in a second. I think I specifically don't... There's an opportunity here to put Batterskull on the Yorion to have lethal, but it looks really bad against Petty Theft. So if I would rather they just like cast that and have it be annoyance than have them cast it and give them like an actual opening to win the game. And then this also is very funny. My opponent spends 7 mana to cast a Murktide Regent. I just go ahead and attack with both because none of their blocks are good. The Grief dies. I bounce the Yorion so that it doesn't die to the Flyers in play. Put the Yorion back in play. I then Lotus Petal my Karakas so that I have Karakas protection, but that's just bad because they have the Wastelands to kill the Karakas anyway. So don't do that, but it didn't matter. They were very dead. So now we get to go to game 3 against Scam this time. I have a hand here that if you take literally any one of these cards and replace it with a plains, or I guess almost any land, I'm like very happily keeping it. This hand definitely isn't efficient, but it has so much that's good against them. Unfortunately, I don't think we can afford to keep a 1-lander. So we mulligan and get like the exact same hand but way more resilient. So very much rewarded for mulliganing, and we throw the Savannah away because we're on the our hand is cheap. We're on the draw. We don't need a wastelandable plains. Unfortunately, my opponent does in fact get to grief scam us, take our swords and our sash, so we'll see where this game goes from here. Now, I make a mistake here. What I believe is a mistake. So I top deck this Swords to Plowshares, and I'm like, all right, cool. I'm just gonna kill this grief right now. Unfortunately, my opponent then has the days for the swords. Um, I really think in this spot I'm supposed to just play around days because the swords is the important card to resolve, and I'm supposed to just cast the Thoughtseize first, or even cast the Mom first. Honestly, that might be good enough to get a daze out of their hands. As we're gonna see, I kind of get rewarded for the Thoughtseize specifically resolving because my opponent has a hand of I believe they cycle a troll here to get an Undercity Sewers, and then they have Archon of Cruelty and Dothy Voidwalker. Now, if my swords had resolved and they just went turn 2 Dothy Voidwalker, and instead I basically had basically what my card that resolved ended up answering the Voidwalker instead of the grief, which ends up being good for me because at least I can block the grief. So it works out for me, but it was still a mistake. My opponent sewers a troll into their yard, and I'm feeling at least a little bit comfy because my opponent has an unusable Archon in their hand at the very least. Also, know that they can't entomb for it if they draw one. Another mistake, there is no reason to cast this sash here. I'm supposed to just wait until my vial's on 2. I don't get punished for it, but there was no reason to cast the sash here. Supposed to wait, put the Mom into play. It gets a Bowmasters out of their hands. We can put the sash in off of this vial on 2 right now anyway, and we will end up not using this vial on 2 at all. So anyway, I believe we take one more hit here. Yes. I just want to wait until Sash gets a little bit bigger. My opponent makes an interesting choice where they don't wasteland my Shadowy Backstreet right now, but they wasteland it with my Vial trigger on the stack. This is wrong for a couple of reasons. One, I'm not playing Samwise, but I could be playing Samwise, and also just on board, it gives me an extra white mana to use with this Sash, which actually changes the math quite a bit, because it means that my Sash can block the grief this turn. Once I draw the Bowmasters, I don't have to, but like that immediately puts me in a situation where I can like double block the grief with the Sash and the Mom, give the Mom pro black, and just kill the grief. So I decide to Bowmasters in their upkeep because I want to get the blockers into play. I don't want to give them the opportunity to draw into another into a counterspell. My opponent finds Animate Dead for Dothy Voidwalker, which is feeling pretty sketchy for me. And it basically forces me to take some sort of block here, and it's another one where I'm just kind of deciding what resources I'm throwing into the block. I figure on 1 mana, not super likely that they're going to be doing anything awful, so I just, like, they can't Bowmaster me. So I block with the Orc Army and the Mom, give the Mom pro black to save it, and then my opponent has Dismember for the Lion Sash. And I'm like, okay, I really wish that didn't happen, but at least my opponent only has 1 card left, and like there's like no real reanimate targets right now, so we're okay. I keep Vial on 3 here so that I can capitalize on on drawing a 3-drop. I then attack with both of my creatures because right now I need to play to my out of winning this race because I, again, cannot block this Voidwalker. And I'm also not cracking this fetch for very similar reasons. Unfortunately for me, I draw a Solitude here. Now, I should say, good thing I drew a Solitude here. It hurt my soul that if I had ticked up the Vial, it would be at 5 this turn, and I could just Vial in this Solitude, and the next 5 turns would be a lot less stressful. But I still don't think that that's correct. We have way more 3-drops that have a chance to be important. So I grab Yorion, pitch Yorion to Solitude, kill the Voidwalker. We're at 2 life. Make a very funny Sultari. Oh, Sultari Monk. Oh no, I'm not going to cancel you. It was a good bit though. I remember it. So, attack my opponent to 7. I'm specifically not attacking with Mom now because I don't have to race. I want to kill them fast, certainly, but there's less pressure without an actual unblockable creature in play. Thank you. Would I classify D&T as a mid-range deck now? I would classify D&T as it has basically been a control deck for almost every iteration. It has enacted that control in different ways. I actually wrote an entire article kind of about that history, but I would basically always classify D&T as control. I draw a Wasteland here, which is nice. Lets me keep a hard cast Grief from happening. And then here, I unfortunately get somewhat punished for not attacking with this Mom because it gives my opponent the opening to reanimate a Grief, which puts them at 2 when they could instead be dead. And now things are looking real scary. At this point, I'm now keeping the Vial on 3 basically for forever because I have, I think, 2 Solitudes left in my deck, maybe 3, as the only cards that make me want to take my Vial up. I draw another land. So here I can't attack because I need to be able to block the Grief, but my opponent can't really afford to attack either, so at least we're kind of in a holding pattern here. Still keeping it on 3 because I want to be able to capitalize on a Recruiter right away. And then we draw this Bowmasters, and this Bowmasters gives us an opening to win the game. I do make a critical error here. What you're supposed to do is cast the Bowmasters first. If the Bowmasters resolves and hits them and puts them to 1 life, then use Mom on the Bowmasters to give it pro-black to attack through this Grief. I do it in the opposite order, which eats dirt to a, I guess, if my opponent has like 2 dazes, for example, they have to have a non-force of will counterspell because they can't pitch a card. They can't pitch cast force at 1 life, but like I can't make that attack safely unless my Bowmasters resolves, basically. So almost lose it at the end. Thankfully don't. End of that game was very stressful, but we do make it. This is the game where we know 1 is Archon, actually. So I think it was mechanically incorrect, I think just like objectively. But thankfully we didn't really have... There was nothing that they could really have that punished us. But we still should have done it the other way, basically. So we are now 4-1. The idea of going to bed early, out the window. I think it's not quite. I think it's like 11 something. It's like 11:15, something like that. I have a hand that looks pretty great, honestly. Just a good hand against basically anything. I go ahead and Thoughtseize, and I see my opponent is playing Delver, and they have a hand with a ton of blue cards in it. I see an argument for taking basically any of these cards. Um, I end up taking the days here because I know that I'm going to be playing into it. And especially with this Thalia in my hand specifically, what I really want to do is make my opponent go like turn one ponder and then have to spend their entire turn two casting a lightning bolt on my Thalia unless they cast the Force of Will. So that's kind of where my head is at, choosing to take the days over anything else. I could see arguments for taking Force because it's the hardest card to play around. I could see taking Murktide because it's their only threat. Um, yeah, so. So my opponent gets a Volk, plays a Ponder, plays a Bauble, cycles it. Oh yeah, so you used to view 60 card version closer to Prison. Yeah, I think that's mostly splitting hairs. I think the old version used to kind of play like that in some ways, but like I don't think Prison really makes sense because like they're I think that like that just kind of simplifies what that deck was really about. And yeah, I wouldn't say that I'm not sure that like nothing about the deck has really changed recently to really make me think that it would be any different kind of archetype. Anyway, my opponent fetches. They bolt the Thalia as expected, and then I go for my second Thoughtseize. This Thoughtseize actually gets forced because the Murktide is still the only threat in their hand and they need it. So they force pitching Ponder. That gives me an opening to cast this Stoneforge to get a Kaldra. And I would be very afraid of the Murktide if I didn't have the Wisp in my hand as like a pseudo answer. But I also get this Batterskull kind of as a backup. Unfortunately, my opponent has Unholy Heat to kill the Stoneforge. Not gonna lie, this is like, you know what? I'm saying it. This is definitely a Formal Wear moment. If I had Formal Wear in my deck, I would have gotten it here. So we're gonna do that. Thank you, Jared, for the congrats. Thankfully, we are very skilled at this game, and we just draw a swords off the top, so we get to use that instead of using the answer in many sets of quotation marks that Flicker Wisp is for Murktide. And then we get to cast the Lion Sash to keep control of the graveyard going forward. Unfortunately, my opponent then goes DRC into Unholy Heat, the second Unholy Heat notably, to kill my Lion Sash. But I'm only one land away from casting this Batterskull. My opponent's on 0 cards. I sorcery speed, go for a Surveil here in case if I'm going to cast the Flicker Wisp here because I want to just eat the Dragon's Rage Channeler if it gets forced to attack. So I sorcery speed Surveil because if I bin the card that's on top, I want to look one card deeper by flickering the Surveil lands. There's a Recruiter on top. I'm keeping that. I'm definitely not bottoming that. So we're definitely not binning it. So I just untap a Plains instead. Opponent casts a Ponder. This will turn on Delirium. And then they brainstorm. They put a tropical island in their yard. I don't know if this is the build that only plays one tropical island, but there are builds of Delver that do. I feel like it can't be. It can't be one of those builds, but like maybe they decided they just had to forego being able to cast Questing Druid. Anyway, DRC turns online, so I very happily trade with it with the Flicker Wisp. They draw off of their portents. And in this spot, I just want to not die to follow up threats, so In this spot, I'm just spamming Solitudes, especially when I draw more lands. With no threat in play, I'm pretty happy to force out any counter magic, anything like that on the Batterskull. They do end up having. Yeah, they end up. Oh, I think I reveal them in a second. So they do seek the beast, and they reveal. They with the seek the beast, they exile Brazen Borrower and Murktide Regent, and then they cast the Daze from their hand. Notably, they cannot cast both of those cards, and only one of them is even remotely castable. So they cast the Murktide as it's like a 4/4. Yeah. But they are once again down to 0 cards. So in response to the Bauble trigger, I just Solitude the Murktide Regent so that they can't have a counterspell for it. Currently unsure if they have another tropical islands to cast this Questing Druid ever. I don't think we ever figure out. But yeah, I am feeling, especially after the second recruiter, feeling extremely good about where I am. This DRC into a lightning bolt is probably like the best they could have asked for. I guess probably Murktide into bolt would be better, but I Stoneforge. You know what? We're getting in another exclamation point formal wear. If I could have formal weared for a Wisp here, I would have loved to do that. But instead, I Stoneforge for GT, recruit for a Solitude, and yeah, my opponent is not interested in playing this game anymore, and I can't really blame them. And now we get into game 2, which is gonna go really quick. I have a hand that's it's like pretty good. It's a little clunky, but like it works. And then my opponent goes turn on Volcanic Island, ponder, and then they shuffle. And they also mulligan to 6. So I sniff out. They might be having some problems over there. I'm just go for a turn 1 Wasteland. And guess what? There were some problems over there. Their only other land is Wasteland. So I Thoughtseize and see what's going on over there. And yeah, their hand is all spells and no mana to cast them. I decide to take the Brainstorm just because I think that the Brainstorm has the highest chance of once they draw a land, it fixes all of their problems. Whereas without the Brainstorm, I think they draw a land and their hand is still clunky as hell. Yeah, I highly recommend recording the matchups or recording the replays because it just makes it so much easier. The Moto replay system is unusable. My opponent does not draw another land, so I go ahead and cast a Stoneforge Mystic. I get a Batterskull, and my opponent does not draw a land, so they concede. Game's over. So you really got to be careful about when you wasteland against decks like Delver, especially. But sometimes you just smell blood in the water and you kill them. So officially, we went from losing round 1, thinking that we're going to bed early, to not losing again, and now playing our win in. And we do have to win this. The math was that there were definitely going to be a couple X2s that are in. But again, as mentioned earlier, my breakers were trash, so I needed to win. We skipped past the 7 that I think was, it's Lion Sash, Batterskull, and nothing else. Not keeping that. Then we got a hand that's Thoughtseize and Solitude. Don't really like that either, but I'm not going to go to 5 over it. I put the Surveil land on the bottom, so that I can fetch for it later. My opponent also mulled the 6, which helps. And then I cast a turn 1 Thoughtseize, and my opponent forces it, pitching Narset. And that is really making me think that this might be like a Daze Undoing tech. I'm not 100% sure, but it feels kind of likely. And then they go Island Chrome Mox, and I'm like, yeah, this is whole day for sure. And then they cast a Chalice on one that is completely blank. I don't care about it, and they're down to one card in hand. And I draw a Flicker Wisp, and my eyes go straight to that Chrome Mox. And I am going to make them spend another card to have any mana off of that. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think I get super confirmation here. Yeah, they pitch a Day's Undoing to that Chrome Mox. I think I highlight it here. Yeah, just to be very explicit, there is a Day's Undoing under there. Avert your eyes. Please don't look. I definitely don't cast this Mother of Runes into this Chalice because I'm getting tired. That didn't happen. Guys, it didn't happen. Anyway, I'm going fast because not much else happens this match. I cast a Recruiter. I think no, I cast a Yorion right to flicker the Flicker Wisp. Uh oh. Whoops. What's happening? Hold up. There we go. I cast the Mother of Runes into that Chalice because I was tired. Okay, anyway, so after that, I decided to cast the Yorion because I just want to make their Chrome Mox unusable for even longer. And then my opponent pitches Hull Breacher to Subtlety to quote unquote counter my Yorion. So I just put it back on top because I want to cast that Yorion again later. Flicker Chalice is an option. I don't have many 1-drops. I don't have many in my hand. I think I found a list from this person where their only 0-drops were Chrome Mox. That's it. So flickering the Chalice was basically going to make it blank for both of us, but I don't need to cast 1-drops with this hand, so I just want to make their hand as unusable as possible. Yeah, they don't have Echo. They only have Day's Undoing. And then my opponent casts Chalice on 2, which I also can ignore with this hand. So casting Mom into Chalice is balancing the universe for all the Dark Rituals Chalices counter. Yeah, I can see that. I get it. So I cast the Yorion, flicker the Wisp. I'm pretty sure I go after the Chrome Mox. I might go after the Chalice on 2, but yeah, I'm pretty sure I go after the Chrome Mox. And then they play in islands to kill their City of Traders, and they scoop. Then we go into game 2. I don't really remember how I boarded, other than I know I brought in Cabal Therapies. As a Cabal Therapy Lauren, something like that. And I think this ends up being like the longest match of the night, actually. So this hand is pretty sketchy. I keep it mostly because I am on the draw, and I'm on the draw. Oh shit, Anurag, thank you so much for the raid. 414 people. What? Hello everybody. I hope you had a good stream. Thank you so much. Hello, all of you. I top aided the Legacy Challenge on Magic Online back on Friday, the Friday evening one. So I'm just doing a review of all my matches. We're getting close to the end, but you joined us just in time for the longest one here. So yeah. This hand only has 1 land, but it can do a lot off of that 1 land, and notably the things it can do off of 1 land involve not dying to like a fast Hull Breacher into a Day's Undoing. And we're on the draw, so we have a bit of time to find that other mana also. So that's kind of the the copium that I'm putting into keeping this hand that may have been a mistake. I mean, we're going to find right here that I do not, in fact, draw a land by my second turn. But I do get to get a little bit of extra value out of it by discarding Cabal Therapy. Big brain, big brain. On the bright side, again, I am not losing to a Hull Breacher anytime soon. I do end up getting a swamp, which is nice. I get to cast the Stone Forge. My opponent does Subtlety it, which feels kind of bad because I do have to put it on the bottom. I really can't afford to cast this Stone Forge again, but, you know, that's why people play Subtlety. That's all right. Also, certainly happy for them to be playing Subtlety over, like, anything else. Mad1094, thank you so much for the follow. How's it going? I don't draw mana again, unfortunately, but, you know, we'll live. I can only take so much damage from this Subtlety, so I decided to try to Swords here. My opponent chooses to Force, which works for me. I have to get through those forces eventually. I thankfully get to draw a land here, which allows me to cast a Skyclave, which then makes them Force again, this time pitching a Lorien Reveal, which I'm very happy that they don't have the opportunity to cast. So and then here they cast, right, a Cursed Totem. That was the first time I have seen a Cursed Totem in play in Legacy in a very long time. I think actually the last time that I would have seen it was, I used to play this back in like 2015 as like back when I was just really sick of losing to Elves. Back when that matchup was truly unwinnable. I had that in like my Enlightened Tutor sideboard once or twice. It was bad. Don't do it. I'm not even really sure why it's in this deck. I can't imagine a Legacy deck that it's like particularly good against, but regardless. My opponent cast a Cursed Totem, and then Days Undoing. This gives me the opportunity to at least pitch my Lion Sash that I don't really want at all in this matchup to the Solitude to kill the Subtlety, so we're at least on like an even board. I can live with that. Schmerzen's kind, thank you so much. Schmerzen's kind, maybe. Thank you for the follow. I hope I got that after all those attempts. And then we actually end up getting wheeled into a pretty good hand here. Stoneforge, Bowmaster, and Cabal Therapy, all good. My feeling here is that I could go just double 2-drop, or I could Cabal Therapy for Force of Will in 2-drop. My feeling, the reason I decided to go for Cabal Therapy is that I just wanted to know, like, I would rather take a Force of Will out of their hands and know what I'm playing around than just like spam 2-2 drops and hope that it works out after that. So I decided to go for the Therapy. Unfortunately, it puts me in a kind of awkward spot. I do end up getting a Force of Will here. Let me try to back up here. There we go. Nice to meet you as well. I'm glad I got close. So I do get a Force of Will out of their hand. But as we can see, the rest of their hand is a little bit concerning because it's 2 Chalice of the Voids against a hand that only has 2-drops. Miloskrag, Crag, whichever way it is. Thank you for the follow. Thank you so much. And they have plenty of mana. They're going to put this Chalice on 2. They might even put a Chalice on 3 if they have enough time. So I'm glad that I get a Force of Will, but like this is probably the most that I've cared about a Chalice on turn 6 that I ever have in my entire life playing this game. So I decide to cast a Bowmaster. Probably, yeah, I think I cast the Bowmaster because the Stone Forge isn't really even a threat because of the Cursed Totem, unfortunately. And then I use the Orc army from the Bowmasters to flashback the Therapy. And I thought a lot, honestly, about whether I would rather they have the chalices versus having the Days Undoing. Um, but I kind of decided that like I can't really let them have chalice because then it's just going to give them all the time to find a Days Undoing anyway. Um, and at least like if they cast an Undoing here, oh well, we're just resetting again. It's only really a problem if they like top deck a Narset or a Hull Breacher or whatever. So in the replay, I'm currently cleaning up the revealed zone, but we're getting there. And then the most annoying thing in the world happens. The Thoughtseize bug. My opponent top decks a Chalice and puts it on 2 anyway, and I'm feeling real bad. Feeling just terrible about everything. I do thankfully draw a Recruiter of the Guard. I also Wasteland the Ancient Tomb because I know that they're about to cast a Days Undoing. That's like almost for certain because they don't have anything else that they can do with their hand. So I just want to limit the amount of mana that they have after that. And then I recruit for a Mom. Mom's not good, but if I recruit for literally anything else, it's just going to get shuffled back in my deck. So. And then, yeah, I was surprised a bit here that my opponent didn't Days Undoing. And then I cast a Thoughtseize, and the card that they drew was just a Force of Will. So yeah, I'm really not entirely sure why they didn't Days Undoing, but it lets me get 2 damage in, so okay. Alright, my opponent casts a Days Undoing, and I just let it resolve. And then I draw into pretty bad hand, unfortunately. In my upkeep, I'm then surveilling so I can fix my draw, and I find a Lauren. And I keep the Lauren because I think I killed the Chalice on 2, if I remember right. Yeah, because it just opens up a lot of top decks for me. And then we're getting back into the red zone. Unfortunately, the rest of the hand is still bad, but we'll get there. We cast the Vials because maybe it'll matter later. It turns out that if I had those Vials 1 turn earlier, it would have been really good, but I won't spoil too much. So my opponent Narsets, they find a Force of Will, and then they cast another Chalice on 2. I'm a little bit upset about it, but I'll live. And then cast find a Stoneforge. I can't cast it because of the Chalice, but at least I'll be able to put it in play with the Vial in a second. And then with attacks here, I kill the Narset, and then put them to 12, yeah. And my opponent draws a bajillion cards. They imprint a Force of Will on their Chrome Mox. Them leaving up blue, 2 and a blue, makes me very, very suspicious of a Hull Breacher, but there's not really anything I can do about it anyway, so whatever. Then I draw Battle of Bywater. And I thought a bit, the fact that I know my opponent has a Force of Will in their hands kind of leaves me with like no good options here, really. But I figure that like probably the one shot I have here is if my opponent casts this Hull Breacher and they somehow don't have a blue card for their Force of Will. Because it seems very obvious from all of this that they're setting up for Hull Breacher into Days Undoing. They've actually pitched another force to that force, so then they have 2 forces. There are no forces left for them to draw into until they cast the Days Undoing, which they are about to do. They actually also dismember my Lauren. I'm not even sure why they did that, but it doesn't matter. I put in a Stoneforge. I think I get a Cauldron just to feel something, even though I know that it's gonna get shuffled back in. Yeah, I get a Cauldron. It doesn't matter. My opponent gets 7 treasures. I'm really upset about everything. My opponent is like weirdly very close to dead, but like my draws need to be good. Unfortunately, my opponent then subtleties this mom. I have to put the mom on bottom. They Narset, they find the Dismember. The Dismember makes me really sad because now I can't even Yorion next turn. This is where if I had one of these vials on 4, then there's a chance that I could have done something. Specifically because my opponent didn't cast the Dismember already. If I was taking a vial up to 5 here, this therapy that I draw to try to get the Dismember would have opened up an opportunity here. But unfortunately, they Dismember my Recruiter. There's nowhere to go from here. Do I consider conceding for clock at any point here? No. I think the games were going fast enough. And the games against this deck tends to not be very long. That I decided to play it out. Probably not really for any value. I think I probably could have conceded once the Days Undoing resolved, or once that like last Days Undoing resolved. I'm not totally sure, but yeah, I'm down a couple minutes. I think it ultimately won't really matter that much, but like if I was closer to like 9-8 minutes, I think I would have conceded earlier. Yeah. But I think I have a total amount of time that's more than enough to get the match over. So this is my 7. The 7 is unkeepable, so I mulligan. And I mulligan. Oh, God. Why'd that happen again? So my 7 is unkeepable. My 6 is yet another one-lander. Juego Master? Hopefully that's a appropriate soft J word. Thank you so much. Thank you for the follow. My opponent is also mulling to 6, notably. It's just one where I felt like therapy. No, because of the U. Got it. So it's Juego Master. Got it. So this one-lander casts 3 spells. Particularly, I think the discard spells are very effective against them. So I'm okay with this being a one-lander and it taking a little bit to get off the ground. The replay takes a while to remember that I'm taking a game action, and then I get the Thoughtseize. And this hand is all over the place. I still really have no idea what the correct choice was. What I ended up doing was taking the Lorien Revealed because I felt like the major weakness for this hand is the mana. Especially because right now, like, their only land is Saprosan Scary. If I draw a Wasteland, it's just gone. If I take the Lorien Revealed, they have to like pitch a real card to this Chrome Mox, basically. And they're still going to be pretty far off from casting Hullbreacher or Days Undoing, and I both have another discard spell and a removal spell, so I'm just feeling fine taking the card that makes them able to cast their spells more. Not 100% sure that's right, but that was where my head was at the very least. Oh, was I wrong in a different way? All right, I'll have to ask you later. So I unfortunately don't draw another land, but I go ahead and therapy away the Days Undoing, and their draw step was a basic island. So they play the basic island, and now they could cast a Hullbreacher, and I have yet another. Yeah, once again, don't draw lands. I try to cast the Mom. My opponent then, the one unknown card in their hand was a Force of Will. I don't know really why they're forcing a Mother of Runes, but I'm not going to complain about it either. So my opponent pitches the subtlety to the mom. Mom goes away, and their hand is just Hull Breacher into Chrome Mox. And all I need is for them to not draw Days Undoing right now. And they don't, so I'm okay. I still haven't found a second land, but we're figuring it out. My opponent once again pitches another subtlety to another Force of Will on another Mother of Runes. I still don't really know why they're doing that, but they do it. I'm happy to have the Solitude. It means that we're safe from at least a Hull Breacher into a Days Undoing. My opponent Narsets for a Lorien revealed. They kind of have to because they have to get their mana under them. That works for me. We are now on turn 7. Still haven't drawn a second land, but at least we now have 2 ways to not die to a Hull Breacher. My opponent cycles for an island, plays it, and then I once again don't draw into the lands, and I'm starting to get pretty frustrated. My opponent casts their Chrome Mox. They imprint a Dismember here, which is very interesting to me because they revealed one to Narset. My guess is that they just have another one in their hands because I feel like a Dismember on this, like I could believe that they would imprint it because like we haven't put anything into play and we're really stuck on mana. But like I have to imagine like they would be afraid as soon as we draw like one more land, and they also have been Force of Willing Mother of Runes, so they're so allergic to us having anything in play that I have a hard time imagining them like imprinting their one removal spell onto this Chrome Mox. Anyway, it is now turn 9, and we have finally drawn our second land. And what I decided to do is my opponent Hull Breachers. I just want to kill the Narset, so I get just get these draw, like the draw prison effects, whatever you want to call them, out of play, so I can't die to a Days Undoing. So I Bowmaster the Narset to kill it, and then while they still are untapped, I just pitch my second Stoneforge to the Solitude to kill this Hull Breacher. My opponent does not do anything. I am feeling very blessed about that. And now I just want to end this game. I am so tired of being stressed out about stupid Hull Breachers and Days Undoings, and I just want this game to end. And this is where we get confirmation that my opponent, in fact, did have a second Dismember. Fun fact, my opponent could have paid 2 less life using their Chrome Mox that only taps for black mana, but they didn't. I thought that was kind of funny. Yeah, I looking back on this, I was like, as I was watching this, like just trying to record the replay, I am also kind of amazed that I ended up winning this. Once you draw the third land, I really just want to hurt their mana. It's like right now their spells don't appear to be doing anything, and they also don't have the mana to cast them, so I just want to make that even harder. They get a Lorien revealed, so they're back up to 3 mana, but 3 mana wasn't enough before, so is it really going to change now? We'll see. So, just attacking them. And I believe here I recruit, and then I'm not really sure what card I was supposed to get here, to be totally honest. Let me see if I can rewind just back to where it's showing my library. Can I snipe it? Cool. There we go. With the Solitude in my hand, I don't feel like I have to get another one as like a safety net. So I think my 2 options basically were Bowmasters or Stoneforge. I think the only thing I really have to do is put pressure on. I chose Bowmasters in the moment. And I think that was probably a mistake. Oh, I don't want to go that far. I think Thalia doesn't really do much. I boarded out, I think, two of my Thalias, because it's like if they're gonna start casting spells, it's very likely that it's gonna be because they found like a soul lands to really unlock stuff, and like Thalia doesn't really do much against those hands, basically. And in this again in this situation, like I don't think that keeping them I don't think that I want to spend creatures on keeping them from casting their spells versus like just making sure that I have the answer to whatever they do, right? Um, so I'm not really interested in getting Thalia here. Um, yeah, that I think that's basically my reasoning. So then that therapy that I cast forever ago, I decide to sack my Orcish Bowmaster army token, and I just want to see if they have a Daze Undoing and get it out of their hand in case that's like one thing that's been rotting in their hand. Turns out their hand is horrible. It is Null Rod, Chrome Mox, and Azure Fleet Admiral. I will also save you all the work of typing that one in to keep it. Oh my god, I cannot type. I cannot type while talking, as it turns out. It's a blue card that puts the monarchy into play. So yeah, I'm thinking, well, this Null Rod sure looks really bad next to this Chrome Mox. And then possibly the funniest thing happens. They Chrome Mox, imprinting the Azure Fleet Admiral, and I'm like, oh, well, what are they going to do now? Are they going to like hold up a subtlety? No, that's stupid. Of course they drew another Azure Fleet Admiral. So, yeah. So yeah, they draw a card. We get a Orcish Bowmaster trigger off the Monarchy, and then I think we surveil here or something. Yeah, and then we find the fifth land. We were basically just looking to see if we could hit a fifth land, so I can hard cast this Solitude instead of having to pitch cast it. And look, we did. So we kill the Admiral. It really is indefensible. Like I know that like they literally couldn't do anything else, and they were already losing the board anyway. I once again I laugh every time there's 4 triggers for me taking the Monarchy. Like they literally couldn't do anything else. But I think they should just scoop there instead of trying to play it out. I'm not sure. So anyway, we start drawing cards off the Monarchy. My opponent only has a Null Rod and a couple other things in their hands. They Daze Undoing because again that they can't do anything else. Our hand admittedly looks a lot worse than it did until we draw this Thoughtseize, and we get to look at some really funny cards. Notably, they boarded in. Yeah, I'll do it again. They boarded in an Ivory Tower against us. Don't do that. I would really suggest not doing that. And I am honestly really glad that I Thoughtseize them and get to see the Brazen Borrower because it's like the only card in their hand that matters. So I get to take the Brazen Borrower and I don't have to worry about combat at all next turn. I saw someone try to stifle the taking the Monarchy trigger in paper because they didn't know it triggers for each creature. I am so sorry for them, legitimately. But that's hilarious. That's what they get for playing Stifle, right? Anyway, so yeah, we attack them down to 2. I cast this Batterskull because whatever. I forgot. Okay, I forgot about this part. Subtlety, as it enters play, counters target, or quote unquote counters target creature or planeswalker spell. You may note, dear reader, there are no planeswalker or creature spells on the stack, so subtlety in fact does not do anything. It's entirely possible that they were doing this as like the I'm conceding because there's no way that I'm winning this, but I don't know for sure. It did make me laugh though. And with that, we go from 0-1 thinking we're going to bed to early to we have just won our winning in for the top 8 of the challenge. And oh boy, do we have a quarterfinals match for everybody. Let's bring this over. We're playing against none other than Punishing Waterfalls, another well-known streamer. He was playing a brand new deck. And then we will currently in chat. Oh yeah, currently in chat. Thank you for following earlier. So you get to see this from my point of view. So anyway, I lose the die roll. He mulls to 5, which is making me feel a little bit better. He plays it, unfortunately, then plays a turn 1 Urza Saga. I don't have a Wasteland for it. I don't really have any answers to constructs in my hand right now, so I'm feeling a little bit uncomfortable. The one nice thing about turn 1 Urza Saga is that it basically means that the next turn is guaranteed to be turn 2 Ancient Tomb, and not a whole lot else, which means that I can safely cast my Vial on turn 1 instead of feeling like I have to Thoughtseize on turn 1. So, and lo and behold, it's Ancient Tomb plus a Mox Opal that's not even online. So, that works for me. So then, I get to cast this Thoughtseize, and I see Scorpec Lord, Sojourner's Companion, and Thought Monitor. I will once again do exclamation point card for Scorpec Lord, and you can look up the others if you want to. I make a mistake here because I, at the time, had not processed that Scorpec Lord has Unearth. So I take the Scorpec Lord, and as it turns out, that might be important later. In hindsight, I believe that the... Oh, God. What are you doing? In hindsight, I think that I am probably supposed to take the Thought Monitor, is my guess. Just because... I guess... It could also honestly be the Sojourner's Companion. The nice thing about Thought Monitor is that we at least have Bowmasters that are going to come into play by that point, very likely. So, less of a concern, but also having Bowmasters might not be enough to beat the cards that they're going to draw off of it anyway, so it's kind of hard to tell what's going to happen here. The only thing for sure that we know is that we are getting Constructs tokened, and I unfortunately did not anticipate a main deck Needle. I think I should have just activated this Vial in response to the Saga trigger anyway, because there's really no punish for putting in the Mom now. It's not really going to matter. And then they cast the Shadow Spear from hand, which makes me feel even worse. But unfortunately, getting that one Mom into play is not really going to fix the fact that we cannot deploy cards remotely fast enough to beat the stuff that's going on here, unfortunately. I go ahead and grab a Solitude off of the Recruiter. I just want to be mana efficient, and I'm pretty much just going to die here, especially thanks to the Scorpec Lord having Unearthed and making it so that I can't even chump block these Construct tokens. So yeah, that feels bad. And here's that Thought Monitor. It feels real bad. Feels just terrible. So I kill one of the constructs because I'm literally dead otherwise. There's a possibility that I Solitude the Scorpec Lord and then chump block a construct, but like the Scorpec Lord is getting sacrificed at the end of this turn anyway, because that's just how Unearth works. And I think I need to be able to win this game off of like a Flicker Wisp, potentially. Something like that. But we draw a Stoneforge. We're not in this game, and that draw really seals up it takes away any chance that we had of winning that. So to be clear, we know that our opponent is playing the new deck. It's I don't really know if there's a specific name for it. I just called it Synthesizer Stompy. It uses I should actually bring up this card. Here we go. Here we go. Simulacrum Synthesizer. The basic idea here is you play an artifact that's 2 and a blue, and you basically get an Urza Saga / Urza Construct token for every artifact you cast that's at least 3 mana or more. Yeah, Synth Affinity, Synthesizer Affinity, something like that. So basically, you play Simulacrum Synthesizer, and you play like Frogmites. Frogmite might cost no mana, but it sure has a CMC of 3 or more, so you get a Frogmite plus a whole ass Urza Saga construct for 0 mana. And you can do that with Thought Monitor and follow up Simulacrum Synthesizers and Scorpec Lords and the Sojourner's Companions, and you just make like huge boards full of 4,000 construct tokens. That's basically the idea of this deck. And once I knew that he was on it, I was like not feeling great about my matchup. So, but we do have a pretty reasonable hand here. And he mulls the 5 again, actually. So we have some removal. We have a Stoneforge that can put a Cauldron into play. We have a Wisp that can answer some constructs. And the start from him is pretty reasonable. It's just casting a Lava Spur Boots and a Lotus Petal. We don't have to, not really under the gun yet. And I really like that we drew this Skyclave apparition, because probably the scariest thing that could happen as a follow-up to this is he goes Synthesizer into a bunch of other stuff after that. So Stoneforge gets a Batterskull. We would get a Cauldron, but we already have the Cauldron in our hand, and there it is. Simulacrum Synthesizer, probably the card that defines the way that this deck is built. Thankfully for us, there's no cards cast after the Synthesizer, so we get to cleanly answer this with a Skyclave. No constructs that come into play after this. I am sad that we don't get to put our Cauldron into play, but alas. Unfortunately, he casts another Synthesizer and then also casts an Urza Saga, which is making me feel very uncomfortable. But at the very least, I have a Flicker Wisp, which means that I get to flicker my Skyclave to kill the second Synthesizer. Playing your local monthly next week, and I can't wait for this to be everywhere. I mean, obviously, you know your community better than I do. I think like paper tends to adjust a lot slower, and I think people are still trying to figure out exactly the right way to build this deck. Like I think there have been some mono blue variants out there instead of black, but the reason that I didn't attack with Stoneforge is that I anticipated this deck probably has something like Dismember, and it was already going to be, yeah, exactly. I'm playing around Dismember. I just don't want the Skyclave to die. Like, the Skyclave dying is already bad enough because it means I can't Wisp it to answer the Synthesizer. So I don't want that to also mean that they get a 3/3 illusion that's going to block my Stoneforge, and then I can't put my living weapons into play. Can I take this moment to say, do those boots not look like Demon Mail Halberg? At this resolution especially, the color palette and like some of the patterns are very similar at a glance. I don't look at the card directly and see Demon Mail Halberg, but if I look like 2 or 3 cards away, I see it. The color palette is definitely identical. It might be true that 95% of players could not recognize a Demon Mail Halberg on sight. I might make the hot take that 95% of players Should have more class and no more Innistrad card arts. Anyway, moving on. So an Urza Saga construct gets made at sorcery speed to get Lava Spur boost, and then thankfully I have the Swords to Plowshares to prevent that from happening. And then we just take 3 from the illusion, and then we draw a Thoughtseize. Oh, okay. Hold up. So we Thoughtseize, we get to see a Sojourner's Companion and yet another exclamation point card, Sicarian Infiltrator. It's a weird one. I think some people have kind of determined that this card is probably not very good. But basically, it's just 1/2 for 2 and a blue, flash, draw a card, and then it has squads. You can copy it as many times as you. It's like multi-kicker, but for, or I guess replicate, but for creatures, and you pay 2. I go ahead and take it because they could potentially cast it next turn, and it could be a problem. It sure does have flash, yeah. Thankfully, though, we do finally get to put our Cauldra into play and deal a bunch of damage, put him to 4. You can make a construct, but then looks through the equipment looks through the Saga targets that he has available, does not find one that wins the game, or I guess keeps him from losing the game, and then game 3 is over. And now we get to, game 2 is over, and now we get to game 3. Really falling over my words. I've been talking so much. Now, unfortunately, I am going into this on the draw. Not a comfortable place to be against a deck like this. This hand, not great. I think you could, if your opponent mulls at least once, maybe twice, you could convince me that having just like a Wasteland for an Urza Saga plus a Solitude is good enough. But against a 7, I'm just not really interested in a hand that doesn't do anything for the first 2 turns. So I mulligan this and mulligan to something that has similar problems, but at least is a lot more playable. You also don't get to know if they mull twice before you keep the 7. Yeah. I mean, in general, like, you're not always. I mean, looking at that collection of cards, I think it's really only keepable in the matchup if your opponent has mulliganed at least once, if not twice, or you're at like 5 or 4 or whatever, right? Like, so eventually you just don't have a choice. But so getting real 8 cast vibes from this opening. I get to cast a Thoughtseize and see now. I thankfully know that these Scorpek Lords have on Earth, so I get to make this choice with that knowledge. Unfortunately, I'm not really excited about taking any of these cards. Yeah, this hand is just very unexciting to play against. I decide to take the Shadow Spear, mostly just because it's definitely like the easiest way for them to push damage really effectively. I don't really have a hand that cares that much about Dismember. Yeah, exactly. I don't take them because they have Unearth. And the other thing is, I also didn't take them specifically because he doesn't have any more mana, so he would have to cast a Lord right now to use them before I just Wasteland the Ancient Tomb and leave his basically his whole hand stranded. Um, Unfortunately, he draws probably the best card possible there, which is Sojourner's Companion to get the blue black bridge, so I can no longer wasteland effectively, and now I just have to let him cast all his spells, and unfortunately he draws a Simulacrum Synthesizer on top of that, and I'm just like, I am feeling so incredibly behind at this point, and I'm not really sure how I get out of it. If I do, it probably involves a Battle of Bywater, which, again, because these stupid lords have on Earth, is not a perfect answer. So at the end of that turn, I fetch for a Surveil land. I find yet another land and bottom that. And I have a Stoneforge, which is okay, but I can't cast it yet because I have to Skyclave the Synthesizer again, because as soon as those Scorpec Lords start getting cast, making giant constructs, everything just looks really bad. The Stoneforge or the Skyclave unfortunately gets dismembered. They get a 3/3 token, and then I forgot about this Gaia's Cradle. It just like makes a bunch of, basically it just looks like an ancient tomb that doesn't cost any life here. They cast a Scorpec Lord. It gives a counter to the Patchwork Automaton. At this point, there's no outs. I basically need to have a Battle of Bywater and a Swords to Plowshares, and unfortunately, I have neither of them. So, sadly, chat, this is where my run in this challenge ended. Was this quarterfinal? Was this the quarterfinal match against a deck that I had never played against? I don't believe I have a very good matchup against, and for all of the work that I put in through the rest of the challenge, honestly, very happy with my result. Battle would be stabilizing because you waste tomb. Okay, true. Yeah, that's true. As I just have to dodge a soul land basically, and then I have some time. Yeah, that's true. But anyway, yeah. So this is where the challenge ends, sadly. But I still top aided. Still felt really good. Still got to sleep at like a vaguely reasonable time. Um, anyway, yeah. So for those who, a lot of you have only just joined since the Honorag raid or since then. This is the list that I played. This is a white, black, green D&T list I've been working on a lot. It's I've been having like close to this list for 5-ish months at this point. It's what I played at Eternal Weekend. Look, you can call it Obzon if you want. I will not be. All right, Toast. I said it earlier, but I'll say it for you also. If you are playing this list in paper, two things. If you should play at least one pre-war formal wear, which you cannot play on Magic Online. You should play it over the second Lion Sash. And if you want to see that list and also get a whole sideboard guide for it, against like I think we're up to 31 matchups on that sideboard guide. I have a link to my Flex slot page all the way up there. That sideboard guide is available to all of my Patreon subscribers at my $5 and up tier. I update the sideboard guide monthly, and it has resulted in a lot of people getting a lot of good results with this list. So, can you cash in channel points to time out Toast? Not yet, but I may institute something like that. See, the thing is, that one is for timing out yourself. It's not for timing out Toast. I was going to go to bed after this, not going to lie. However, there's a lot of you here. So I'm going to take advantage of it, and we're going to play at least a match or two. So, hello. Thank you for watching. I'll do it if you agree that Lava Spur Boots looks like Demon Mill Hallwork. Oh, that's a, there you go. If you do it a bunch, it's just going to be, you're redeeming a lot of timeouts for yourself, unfortunately. There very much is a chance that I would play more than one formal wear. I think that 2 might be correct. It has been such a good card. I haven't had a chance to actually play with 2 yet, but I really want to, hopefully soon. Put the sash on the bottom because we have 2 stone forges to get it if we need it. Grotto, thank you so much for loving my stream. It feels really nice. Yeah, my current cut for the second formal wear is Batterskull. That's where my head is at. Bayou Thoughtseize, huh? I am not sure how to feel about that. Is that depths, maybe? Stoneforge. Well, I guess we're going to figure out. It is, okay, it's Saga Storm. That, I think, was my second guess. Oh god, this hand of theirs is not good. I feel like I just take the Dark Ritual because like the rest of their hand doesn't do anything. Like discarding Echo doesn't do anything because they can only cast it off of an LED anyway. So I think Dark Ritual just makes the most sense. Yeah. Let's see. Compliment my pet card, Dark Blast. Dredge is definitely a mechanic of all time. I think Dark Blast is like one of the cooler Dredge cards they've printed. I like that it only works against very small creatures. I think that's cool. Yeah, I think like Dark Blast and Shenanigans are like the 2. Those are the only 2. Oh, what's your third? What's your third Toast? I'm curious. Oh, you were including Loam. Okay. Yeah. I think Loam is like, I am not as into Loam personally, but what are we doing here? To be clear, I think the Dredge deck as a whole is cool. In terms of like individual cards with Dredge, I think the cards outside of the Dredge deck are cooler, if that makes sense. Anyway, so my opponent has played a Saga. I think I'm just gonna cast the Thalia here so that like there's like basically no shot that something bad happens. We'll have time to get the Stoneforge to deal with the Saga construct tokens. Yeah, I agree with that. I think lands is a cool deck, but loam, the games involving loam are not cool. I agree with that. Hmm. Yeah, I'm not blocking anyway, so. Excuse me. You're a simple woman, you love a grave troll. Yeah, I get that. I really do. I was wondering if there's going to be an LED for an echo, actually. I'm surprised they don't echo now, honestly. It feels like a bit of a waste. I guess I know they're going to echo soon, so I should just solitude this now, I think. Yeah. Oh yeah, good steamer. Oh no, not another Thalia. Yeah, we're putting in this Cauldron. I guess I'm not totally sure if I can even afford to attack with this Cauldron. I don't think I can, actually. Which is a huge bummer. Yeah, I think I just have to block. Yeah, I am sort of regretting the solitude now, unfortunately. I was kind of just assuming that they would be using their echo, not really acknowledging the fact that like their saga might just beat us on its own. Um, yeah, it's gonna be annoying if they echo our Yorgon out of here, but I think the threat of getting another equipment off of the Stone Forge is big enough. Another LED, okay. Yeah, I'll just do the one block. I don't think that attack really makes sense to me, but I forgot that I already used my Surveil land. Oops. Damn it. That was dumb. Okay, we found another land anyway. And I'll get a Batter Skull so that I can try to not die to these constructs. And now I can finally F6. First time in a while. Yeah, this isn't really gonna work. Yeah, I can just afford to jump here. Okay, we are getting echoed now. They do have a lot of mana to potentially play through this Thalia. But I do have 2 Solitudes. I can dismiss those, yeah. Block with your own. Yeah, sure. That would have been better. Yep. They tendrils us for 12. But unfortunately for them, we have a Solitude. And I will go ahead and Solitude my Yorion, and we will go up to 14, and then only go down to 2. Cool. All right. Love to win game 1s against Storm. Bringing in all of these. And I'm usually boarding against Saga Storm gets really complicated because you want some removal, but you don't want that much. God, what do I even? I don't even remember what I cut anymore. So I definitely cut a Plains. I'm pretty sure I cut the Skyclaves. Probably want to cut like 1 Sash because it's pretty mana intensive. The Bowmasters are like only good against Echo. They're otherwise quite bad, and I think I have enough cards that are good against Echo that I don't really want Bowmasters on top of it. And I think I want some removal, but I don't want that much. I might want Bowmasters over the Solitudes. Maybe I have like 1 Solitude to recruit for. I think I've had that in a list before. And then Scarab Swarm's probably just too slow. Yeah, they showed a song, but like that's I feel like the song kills against D&D like it's almost never how you lose in my experience. So yeah, this looks about right. Not gonna keep a hand like this. This hand is probably just gonna die, but at least it has like direct hate with this Thalia. We just get Thoughtseize anyway. Rip. I will. Oh, they take Bowmaster. Interesting. I kind of want to just Wasteland them. Yeah. Hello, Thalia. Nope, no Batterskull, thank you. Oh, they mill an Echo? That's gross. That's just mean. Not really what I wanted to see, but we at least aren't likely to die to Stormkill with Thalia in play, so we can start there. Gross. Excuse me. Alright, this is a lot of Caracas. I don't need this many deck, but thank you. They're floating a mana. I don't like that at all. Stop drawing sagas. Just cut it out. Just go in ritual, or just okay, one ritual, then echo. Sure. Ouch. I will bounce my Thalia. Not looking great for me though. Another echo. I just get to cast it. Yep, I'm super dead. Got it. I might want to have more Solitudes in my deck versus Bowmaster specifically, given that that's like kind of now one of their win cons. Maybe over the battles. I probably don't need Batterskull really here. Yeah. Yeah, let's try this. Yeah, if I cast Teague, I'll feel really good. I think this hand just has too much going for it to really not keep. We just have to cross our fingers we don't get turn one, basically. If only this vial was a Thoughtseize. Excuse me. No, no, stop it. Please stop it. Don't. I said don't. No. Okay. Got it. So they are trying to echo us, and we will get to Solitude the Bowmaster, so we're not just dead. Seems like pretty alright, but it doesn't look like we're going to have the time to cast it. There's echoing again. Okay. Well, you can only echo 2 more times. And I kind of like this hand even better, honestly. Toast, I have no idea what you're talking about. Sorry to say. Okay, alright. We really just need to get through this turn, and now I'm feeling a lot better about our position. Play Karakas to protect the Thalia, waste the Saga, and we have both a Bowmaster to cast and a Stoneforge to Vial in. Not going to bother attacking with the Thalia right now because I think I'm just going to rely on the Stoneforge to close. Sick. We don't even have to show this. That seems like a really early scoop, but I don't know. People have their priorities. I can't really blame them, I guess. It is now getting dangerously close to the end of the stream. So, or my usual cut time for the stream. So we're probably gonna have to leave it at there, lest we risk just queuing into a Leyline Binding control deck, and then I don't get to bed until like 12:30. I'm much too tired for that. So, this is the most people I've had ever. Thank you everyone for stopping by and watching. Thank you so much to Anurag for the raid. That was perfect. I hope you all really liked the challenge review. I liked doing it. I hope that it was insightful for all of you. As I mentioned before, my list and a sideboard guide for it, specifically for paper, because we can't play the great equipment card pre-war formal wear on Magic Online yet. It's available through my Patreon at the Flexot link all the way above me. Please go check it out. Really appreciate everybody's support. Thank you for stopping by. I'll go look at my list for a couple seconds before I switch over to my outro screen. Did I know that it's the only card with formal in its name? No, I didn't know that, and that's honestly kind of surprising. I feel like in one of like the I don't know, like the Innistrad sets, maybe they would have had like something formal. I don't know. That definitely surprises me at least a little bit. Or like you would think it would be like some card would be enabled like have like formality in its name as an example. I don't know. That definitely has surprised me. What's my pet card? That's easy. It's Mangara of Corindor. I long for the day that will never come that uh, that Mangara is once again legacy playable. Um, so yeah, thank you everybody. I'm gonna switch over to this little screen over here. Uh, if if you would like to follow me anywhere, these are my links to all my socials. You're already here on Twitch. You can find me at Twitter. That Patreon that I mentioned, I will also exclamation point Patreon if you would like a link to that right there. And if you missed any of this VOD and would like to check it out, the VOD will be up on my YouTube. It'll upload overnight, and you can follow me there to get a notification when it comes up. Uh, Lawlesser, thank you so much for the follow. Thank you for stopping by. Um, but yeah, I think that's it for me. Thank you everybody for watching. I stream every Thursday and Sunday at 9 p.m. Eastern, basically always playing or talking about some flavor of Legacy. Death and Taxes, my favorite deck in the whole wide world. I hope you like it too. Um, and I have been talking for so long, so I'm going to stop. Thank you. Have a good night, everybody.